Welcome, I am Mandy Arthur, and you are in the Success Fastlane. Today I am here in beautiful Fort Lauderdale, Florida, with Mr. Louis David Spagnuolo on his gorgeous yacht. Louis is a serial entrepreneur currently serving as chairman of the Illuminati Trust. He is also CEO of Don't Look Media. Thank you for being here with me today, Louis.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so Louis, it's no surprise and it's no secret that you like to live the high life. The only thing that we have to do is look at LinkedIn and we'll see the pictures of you in gorgeous suits, you in yachts, right? The yacht today, and sports cars. In fact, I think you own 20 sports cars, but I'm not going to ask you about that yet. Not going to ask you about your favorite one. If you could tell me, because I'm curious, about what your roots are, where did you come from? You were born rich, weren't you?
I wish, I wish that was the case. That was actually the opposite of what the reality was. I was born in Boston, Massachusetts, in the city. We grew up in a one-bedroom apartment, myself, mother, father, my sister, and we didn't have a car until I was 12 years old. So we certainly didn't grow up rich by any stretch of the imagination. But it was definitely a good upbringing, and I think a lot of the adversities that I had to overcome during that time, being young and not having a normal level of financial support that most people have, has really motivated me and provided me with the drive to really take me where I am today.
Okay, and I know that you also went to Miami College. So I'd like to know, do you think that college is really important for entrepreneurs? Obviously, serial entrepreneur here. I want your opinion.
I think college, I went to the University of Miami. I was privileged enough to go there. My parents, the one thing they really did do for me was pay for my education. And then once I got there, I was on my own. So I do feel that college is important in today's society from a standpoint of how you project yourself and how you have your credentials and things like that. And I would encourage people not only to go to college, but I would encourage them to get a master's degree, a law degree. But when it comes to being an entrepreneur and building a business, you can take certain elements of your college education and apply them. But then I think there's a whole other spectrum of learning and expertise and things like that college and the traditional education system doesn't really provide. And I think that's really provided through experience.
Right.
And that's what I think the most important factor is.
Okay, so experience. Can you tell me about your first experience as an entrepreneur then?
As an entrepreneur? Well, I can tell you my first job was digging graves in Wildwood Cemetery.
Digging graves?
Digging graves
oh
in
my
Wildwood
gosh.
Cemetery.
Digging graves to a multi-millionaire now, rolling up in a Rolls Royce. I can't believe it.
It's a true story, and I'll tell you one of the funny parts about it was, what I learned is when people pass away, they have a choice. They can be buried in a regular-sized grave or what's called a double deep grave. And the double deep grave is actually 12 feet in the ground. And what happened is the other guys didn't want to dig the grave 12 feet down. So me, the entrepreneur, said, hey, you know what, if I can get more money, I'll dig the extra 6 feet and I'll dig all the double deep graves. And that kind of started, going the extra distance and doing what other people weren't willing to do to kind of launch my career in something so basic. So it's a true story, and it's something that, I'm kind of proud of because, by learning to do more than what the next guy is willing to do, it just takes you to a whole nother level, both professionally and personally.
I totally agree, and I can tell by your level of success right now that you've done a lot of things, that other people didn't want to do to get to where you are. I'm curious about your first job now. How did you 10x it there? How did you do what people weren't willing to do? Tell me about that.
The first real job I had, as far as, growing up, I tell people, the first job I had was stealing food out of the back of restaurants.
Stealing food, from stealing food to you could own supermarkets now.
Yeah. Low margin business, but that's where it really kind of started. And then, we had a lot of jobs when I was in high school, and I always worked 2-3 jobs. And then when I went to college, college
You were a hustler.
college was tough, and one of the things I did was I did security work, and I was a bouncer at the nightclubs.
Okay. I can get that.
Yeah, I was
Bouncer.
a bouncer at the nightclubs, and one of the things I did, I guess, to leverage it, so to speak, was the owner would always tell us that if there was ever a fight, he would pay us an extra $50 if we kicked out the guy that was going to start the fight. So I was always on patrol. I was always like the sniper in the club, looking for the guy that was ready to cause the ruckus and start the fight. Because I was like, hey, that's another $50. Let me go chasing this guy. Where all the other guys were like, no, I don't want to get in a fight. So I'd come home with black eyes. And I'd have frozen chicken on my face, all swelled up. So little things like that a lot of people didn't want to do. I said, hey, an extra $50 was a lot of money for me back then. So I said, whatever it takes.
Right. Okay, so your first experience, you were constantly selling, right? You were constantly working 3 freaking jobs. You were a hustler. Tell me about your grades in school. Were you a good student? You were on the dean's list.
The funny part, I'll tell you about growing up at a very difficult time in school because I had a speech impediment.
Okay,
And
tell me about that.
it was hard. I grew up in the city of Boston, and I come from an Italian background. My family came over from Italy, and I didn't have I guess the learning and the culture that most families have, with learning English and things like that. So my language skills weren't very good, especially in elementary school and leading up to junior high school. So I struggled with school early on just because I was afraid to talk, I was afraid to interact with the teachers and things like that. And then eventually I built up my confidence enough where in high school I was straight A's. I was straight A's in high school. I excelled in sports. I excelled in extracurricular activities. From my freshman year in high school, it hasn't stopped. I just wanted to be the best in every aspect of my life, and I was just determined. So if it was school, if it was the debate club, if it was playing football, basketball, whatever it was, I was determined. And then that carried through. And in college, I actually did very well because I took it serious, because I knew that this was going to be my future. I knew I didn't have rich parents. I knew there was no one that I could fall back on. I knew there was no one that was going to lend me money or make a phone call for me to get a job. So I knew if I didn't do well, then I wasn't going to have any opportunities. So I really took it serious and tried to get A's in every class. And it really wasn't until the second semester of my senior year that I was making so much money at that point. Then I started to kind of divert and said, hey, you know what? The school thing's great, but the money part, is a little better, and that's when I kind of dropped off a little.
I love that.
So
what was the company that took off while you were in college?
What we did was when we were in college, and again, it just came out of adversity. Cell phones had just came out, and cell phones were very expensive. And there was only 2 manufacturers. There was Motorola, and I think there was NEC. And I just got a cell phone, and the funny part was I didn't have any money to afford using the cell phone during the day. But back then, nights and weekends.
Yes,
free.
I remember that.
And a lot of people forget that. So I would carry the cell phone with me, never use it, but then 7 o'clock would hit, and boom, I'd be on the cell phone. And what happened one day was we were in our apartment, and the air conditioning gets turned off because me and my roommate couldn't afford our electricity bill.
Yeah.
And it was 100 degrees in the summer, and I'm sweating. And I just
Florida, right?
In Florida. And I just got so frustrated that I grabbed the cell phone and I threw it against the wall, and the whole phone smashes up into pieces. And I'm just sitting there on the couch, and I'm like, I can't believe I don't have enough money to pay my electricity bill. I can't believe I'm going to be sleeping in a bed full of sweat. And I was just so frustrated with myself that I walked over to the cell phone, and I started picking it up. And what I saw was AAA batteries, a part of the cell phone. And I was like, wow, this is really bizarre, because I thought there was some special kryptonite.
Magic, right?
Yeah, a special liquid in the battery.
Basically.
Yeah, some really scientific. And I saw AAA batteries, and I started looking through it, and I'm like, man, the battery was this long, and there was 16 AAA batteries in it. And I was like, wow, this battery is $200, and all it is 16 AAA batteries. So one thing led to another, and we ended up getting 3 samples of it, and I shipped it to China, and I asked this company in China if they could replicate it. And they said, yeah, we could replicate it. They sent me some samples, and I said, well, how much, is it going to cost you? I figured it would cost maybe $80 or something. I didn't know. And they said, we can make them for about $3.10 per unit. So I heard $3.10, and my eyes lit up. Because basically in every store there was no AT&T, there was no Verizon, it was all like mom and pop stores, and they were all $200 for replacement batteries. And what people didn't realize was they had a technology called NiCad batteries, and after 6 months, the batteries would die after recharging it over and over and over. So you were forced to get a new battery. So what we did was we started a company called Level Technologies, and we basically the first ones to build generic cell phone batteries. And we had no brand name, we had no marketing. The only thing we had for us was we had a sustainable competitive advantage from the standpoint of everybody else was selling the batteries for $200 and we were selling them for $90.
Yeah.
And they
You
were
had a whatever it takes mindset.
And basically what we did was we knew that we'd get blocked out of the US market.
Yeah.
Because we knew there'd be too many monopolies, it would be too disruptive of a product to be accepted. So we went to South America where it was kind of like the Wild West, and cell phones were just getting very popular there.
There's a lot of opportunity in the Wild West, man.
Yeah, and people said, hey, am I going to spend $200 of my hard-earned money, or am I going to spend $90 for the same thing?
Yeah.
And then that's when business just took off, and we started making money hand over fist. We got into the car adapters, all kinds of chargers.
And that's when you started taking your professors aside and saying, hey, I know you like a job and all, but there's a way to make real money.
Well, what was interesting was I was making more a month than my professors were making in a year.
I know.
And they were floored. They couldn't believe how much money we were making at the time. This was back in the early '90s when we were making $80,000 a month. That was a lot of money.
Pull up in your Ferrari, whatever.
We're not Ferraris just yet. We had Corvettes, Mercedes. We were gradually going up the ladder.
Yeah.
But the crazy part was prior to that, my biggest paycheck was like $176 working at the cemetery. So now all of a sudden I'm getting $80,000 a month, and I'm like, this is unbelievable. So we were spending probably $90,000 a month and taking in $80,000 a month because we were spending it like drunken sailors, because I'd never had money before. So I would be going out to dinner, spending thousands, parking my car in front, spending hundreds of dollars, buying champagne, and at the time, South Beach was really the hottest place in the world. We had all the celebrities. We had Sylvester Stallone, we had Madonna. It was really the most trendy, hot place, and I was in the middle of it and just going absolutely crazy. And then finally what happened was after about a couple of years doing that, I'll never forget it. I was in my apartment and I'm getting ready to go to a dinner event, and I get a phone call from one of our employees down in Venezuela, and he says, Lou, we have a big problem. We just had a coup d'etat. And I was like, say that again, one more time. And he's like, yeah, we just had a coup d'etat. It was a bad reception. And I didn't know what he was saying. I didn't know if he was talking about, a pumpkin pie or, a new dessert that he wanted to sell or something. I didn't know what this coup d'etat was. So I just hung up and I said, I'll call you later. I think it's no big deal. What I didn't realize was, unlike the United States, we're so fortunate where we have a stable government, we have a constitution. Other countries aren't as lucky. They actually had the army and the rebels take over the government and storm the presidential palace, and a new regime came in. And when a new regime came in, they froze all the assets and all the banks that we couldn't take our money out. So we went from, riding high, making crazy money, all of a sudden, hey, you know what, no more money gets taken out. So it was a real eye-opener for me. And it made me learn that no matter how good you're running, no matter how good you're going, there's always something that can come out of left field that's unexpected, that can derail you. And you always have to be prepared for that.
I can't believe that I just am trying to wrap my mind around the fact that you got your breakout when you were at the end of your rope.
Yeah.
You were at the end of your rope with frustration and just throwing your phone against the wall.
And I'm a big guy, and I slammed it and it shattered all these pieces.
How do you stay motivated still? How do you stay hungry?
It's interesting because I get this question a lot. And, being totally honest with you, a lot of people think that I wake up and, my life's a fantasy and it's like Fantasy Island. And I tell people, on the surface, it could be perceived that way. But in reality, my life is just as hard and complicated and stressful as anyone else's. And every day I wake up and I look in the mirror, and I kind of have this complex that I look at myself and I say, wow, what a loser. You really need to step it up. You need to elevate your game. There's so many people that are achieving great things that you need to get more mentally focused. So I wake up like almost in a panic where I know I got to channel all that energy towards positive things, towards creating abundance, toward manifesting my goals and the things I want to reach. So I have such focus that I'm afraid to be a failure, and I'm afraid to not succeed and not to get where a lot of my friends have get, people that I've met and things like that. That there's really never a moment where maybe I lose motivation. It's always like, okay, what do I need to do? There's always that constant fear in the back of my head. And I joke around that sometimes I can be in the bathroom and I'll have my cell phone and I'll put on like the rock music, and I'll start getting charged up, and I'll get in the shower and I'll be like, all right, I'm ready today. Maybe I was having an off morning or something like that, and I'll really mentally psych myself up for the day and say, hey, there's a lot to be grateful for. Let's get focused and let's make the most of every minute that we have today. And that's really what I try to do.
So you use fear to motivate you. I see a lot of successful people who say, I have no fear. I'm not afraid of anything anymore. Do you think that's true?
Truthfully, I think that's a lie. Because there's a lot of things that I fear. I fear of failing. I think fear is a very good motivator. And the greatest athletes, the greatest business people, a lot of the people that I've spoken to and met that have achieved greatness have always told me that, they were fearful. Before that big game, they had butterflies in the stomach. They were afraid. Or before they walked on stage to perform that concert, they may have been doing it for 20 years and they're still nervous because they want to give the best performance that they can. And they want to make sure that they give every ounce of themselves to their fans, to their customers, to their friends, to their family. So if you don't have that fear, I think, inside you, I think it'd be very difficult to achieve greatness. I think the people that say they have no fear, you can work in the post office and have a life like that and really have no fear. Because you can't get fired.
Because you're not doing anything.
Yeah, you have a government job. Well, what do you have to fear? You know what I mean? So someone like that, I think, is applicable to. But if you're an entrepreneur and you want to achieve things that are great, I think fear is going to stay with you the whole way through. There's never been a day where I've woken up and I've been like, wow, I'm like a rich guy. What a great life this is. And, everything's like a fantasy. I've never had that experience. It's always been, okay, what do we need to do? What are the challenges ahead? How are we going to address those challenges? And, how are we going to push this forward?
Now, you are the chairman at Illuminati Trust and CEO of Don't Look Media. Can you tell me, with those two companies, what are you most excited about doing in the future, let's say this year?
It's funny because this year is kind of been a turning point for me because I've had a lot of success. I've had a lot of companies that I've built and sold. And lately, one of the things that I get the most gratification and it's been the most rewarding for me is my fiance has a son that's in college, and I really started taking the focus on mentoring him and teaching him about business and teaching him, some of the skills that you're not going to learn in school that I've had to learn through my failures.
Yeah.
Because I've had more failures than anybody probably watching this combined. And those failures are what I think made me the man I am today. So by taking him under my wing and kind of teaching him and showing him, not only do I get a lot of gratification, but it's also kind of reminding me of some of the things that I had to do to be successful and keeping me sharp and keeping me on my game. And then through that, I've been able to meet other friends of his that are young entrepreneurs in college, and they've kind of given me like a spike in rejuvenation, seeing their excitement of starting a business and trying to do things and accomplish things. Where a lot of my colleagues at my age, they're in their 40s, a lot of their enthusiasm is gone. But by associating with the younger group, with the younger segment, they're just so excited to be a part of business and they want to achieve things and
They're hungry.
things. Yeah, and I think that rubs on. So I thought that was a very positive thing. And then I've always been asked to do consulting work and work for other companies and individuals and things like that. And I was never able to do it. And then finally this year I partnered with this global company that basically works with the most elite corporations in the world and the most elite individuals. And we've been doing teleconferencing all over the United States and all over the world, helping entrepreneurs scale their business, build their business, prepare for a liquidity event, and give them those skills that maybe they don't have, just managing it, kind of on a balanced stream, whereas I'm more interested in an upward trajectory.
Yeah.
So those are the two things that really I'm focused on right now that I'm excited about for 2016.
Now you've got to tell me, I'm curious about a lot of things, you've got to tell me, Illuminati Trust, could you have chosen a more controversial, no?
It's funny because I said this before, and everyone thinks like there's this whole conspiracy behind it or whatever, and it really was another thing that happened by accident. I was with my team of financial advisors, and they said, listen, we have all these companies, 37 businesses, we need to have one holding company, let's just give it a name. And truthfully, I said, listen, call it whatever you want, call it Mickey Mouse Holdings, and they're like, no, that could be a trademark. So I was like, I don't care, just come up with something. And they're like, Lou, we need you to, give us some input. And I was like, I don't know, do something that conveys trust, because I think trust is very important in business and with sales. And then let's come up with another word that kind of personifies trust and helps illuminate it. And then one of my guys said, hey, what if we call it, Illuminati Trust? And I was like, all right, let's call it that. That'll be fun. It's a catchy name. I didn't think anything of it. And then it kind of just took on a life of its own.
Yeah.
So it was kind of interesting.
All right, so you like controversial things, you like stirring things up a little bit. I think that's true.
Yeah, I think you have to be different. I think you have to stir it up. I say it all the time to people, if you want to be regular and you want to be average, then you're going to get regular and average results.
Right.
If you want to be different and special and have that distinction, which I think is very important. Like I always use the word distinction. If you don't have distinction in your business or your personal life, you're just going to get left in the crowd,
Right.
So you have to figure out a way to distinguish your products, your services, your own personal brand. And I think that's what's critical in today's world with so many impressions constantly being thrown at you. If you can't distinguish yourself, you're going to have a difficult time getting traction.
Now you're talking about your advice right now, but you just spoke with us about being a mentor to college students and people in that age group. Can you tell me, a lot of college students today are graduating and they're like getting out of school and they're saying, well, I can get a job at Starbucks, I can get a job at McDonald's. And they don't really know where to go from there. They're struggling with direction.
Right.
What would be your best piece of advice for them?
The best advice that I could give young entrepreneurs and college students is get a piece of paper and write down the 5 things you're most passionate about in life. So whether it's music or art or business, whatever it may be, look at those 5 things and then look at which ones you feel could give you the best career path. And then whatever one that is, I think the best thing a young person can do is intern at a company that does what you want to do.
Yeah.
So if you want to be a photographer, work with a photography company. Work with someone who's the best in the world at the photography. If you want to be in art, work with someone that has the most world-renowned art gallery.
The masters.
Yeah, and if you're willing to work for free, very few people in today's world are going to say no to you. Because everybody's looking at the bottom line, they're looking at their P&Ls, and if they have someone that says, listen, I'm going to give you 100% and you don't even have to pay me, you have an asset, you have a value. But when you get out of college and you have no work experience, you have no expertise, like you said, you're going to be working at Starbucks.
Yeah.
So you have to make that decision. Do you want to sacrifice in the beginning when you're young and maybe not have as much money as you would working at Starbucks, or do you want to take the easy road and get $8 an hour?
Yeah, it's sort of the difference between settling and saying I'm working for the payoff, not the payday.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. You got to sacrifice in the beginning. And I tell my guys that I mentor, I said the beginning's going to be rough. You may have to work Saturday nights, you're going to miss the parties, you may have to work Friday nights, but at the end, it's going to pay off. Because a lot of these young kids see me, and they see my lifestyle, and they're like, well, we just want to have like the car you have, or the boat that you have, or the watch that you're wearing, and things like that. And I try to explain to them, it's not about material items. That's not what it's about. Material items are nice. It gives you attention, you feel good, you feel proud of yourself. It's about finding where your passion is, giving it 100% effort, and then creating abundance for yourself in all aspects of your life, whether it's spiritual, physical, or mental. I think those 3 components. If you don't have balance in your spiritual life, your mental life, and your physical life, you can't operate at the most efficient level possible.
How do you keep yourself in abundance, spiritually, physically, and mentally strong? How do you do that? What do your days look like? How do you distinguish yourself in that
I'll
way?
tell you, the past couple of years, I really was challenging. I was actually about 60 pounds overweight. I was over 300 pounds, and I didn't even realize it. I was just kind of like in my own bubble, focusing on work, focusing on being successful. And it wasn't until my fiance kind of tapped me on the shoulder, and she's like basically gorgeous fitness model, entrepreneur, has her own empire. Like, she has like the perfect life. And then here's me, this overweight guy that's working 18 hours a day. And she's like, honey, you got to step it up a little. And that kind of, lit the light bulb, and I said, you know what? It's not even about looks; it's about my health. And she said, listen, you know, working out and being in shape physically is only going to help you see more, you know, professionally, and it's going to help you, you know, mentally, your mind. So a lot of times what I do now is I'll wake up in the morning and I do a lot of my conference calls when I consult with my clients. I'll be on the treadmill, I'll have my headphones on, and I'll walk for an hour while I'm doing my consultation. You know, so I always try to make sure I go to the gym at least once a day. I try to do twice a day. I try to do cardio and weights because it's very important, I think, to stimulate the muscles of your body. And it's made such a dramatic difference that I've lost 50 pounds. I'm so much lighter. You know what I mean? I feel so much better. I have much more energy. I feel like I focus better at work. I can accomplish more. So I really think the balance is something that I was lacking. And I think a lot of people lack. I think a lot of people may be great, you know, mentally, but like me, they were suffering physically. Or maybe physically they're in great shape, but mentally they're not as focused. Or maybe they have no spiritual, you know, anchor in their life that's like holding them together. You know, and I think if you have those three, it puts you in a good position to succeed.
Right. Okay, I have one question left for you, Louis.
Okay.
If you had the world's population, 7 billion people listening to you right now, and you have 30 seconds to pitch them on things that can change their life from what you've learned in massive success, what would you tell them, Louis?
I would tell them to spread love.
Spread love?
I really would. Yeah, and I think as humans, we need to love each other more, and we need to help each other more, and we need to try to inspire and lift each other up more. And we were talking about it earlier on camera. You know, a lot of the things I do with LinkedIn is to give people inspiration and let people know that, hey, you know what? I started with the worst obstacles imaginable. I had all the odds against me, and if I'm able to do it, you can do it as well as me, if not even more. You know, because each person, I think, has a unique talent inside them, and it's just a question of bringing it out. And if we can, as individuals, send love to more people and kind of eliminate hate, I think it will give people more confidence to do things and to be the best person that they can be.
Wow, that's like, wow. We got a Tony Robbins here. Louis, I didn't know you had it in you. Well, thank you, Louis. This has been an incredible experience. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I also want to thank Van Dutch. They've been fantastic for me. My man Richard, completely honored. You know, 55 foot, American made, American built, twin 900 horsepower, you know, mega yacht that we were able to enjoy ourselves on. You know, this is a dream come true. Never thought, you know, someone like me growing up would have the privilege to be a part of something like this. So I wanted to thank them for helping guide us and captain us around the Intercoastal today. It was really a fantastic day.
Thank you very much. And you can look at successfastlane.com for more episodes and interviews. We hope you enjoyed this as much as we have. Thank you very much.